You are imperfect, permanently and inevitably flawed, and you are beautiful. Amy Bloom. Bending Not Breaking, the Dragon Prince Edition. Episode 5, An Empty Throne. Hello and welcome back to episode 5 of Bending Not Breaking, the Dragon Prince Edition. If you're here for the Dragon Prince, thank you for listening, and boy, do we have a cool surprise for you today. But first, let me tell you that we do have 3 seasons on Avatar: The Last Airbender with also special guests, including authors, voice actors, mental health professionals, and more. And if you like these episodes of The Dragon Prince, I hope that you'll check those out as well. And don't forget that we also have The Legend of Korra coming after this season of The Dragon Prince, and we would love for you to stop by for those. If you liked getting episodes about The Dragon Prince, give us some feedback. You can give us at all the socials, BNB_pod, and let us know if you like these episodes. We might continue. That's the goal. We want to. But we also want to hear from you to make sure that you're enjoying them. Okay, enough of that, because we have a special, really incredible guest that I want to welcome, and I want you all to meet. So joining us today, we have the Jason Simpson, the voice of many beloved characters across many platforms and genres, but you all may know him best as the voice of Viren. Jason, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you, Ben. It is a great pleasure to be here. I am doing very well. It's an honor to be a part of this. The moment you described to me what you were doing with this podcast, I was, immediately intrigued, and I'm very happy to be here, so thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm like the pleasure. There's the phrase "the pleasure is all mine."
Sure.
I'm like, I've stopped saying that because I'm like, no, it's not all mine. We both can have pleasure, right?
Absolutely.
This is okay. This is a cool thing.
Yeah.
But so I'm not going to say the pleasure is all mine, even though that was what I was going to say. Instead, I'm saying the pleasure is all ours. So do me a favor and just tell us about yourself. Like, what's something that you love? What's something you don't love? How did you get to where you are today? You don't have to give us the whole life story, but
Sure.
What are some big points?
Well, I grew up in a small prairie town in Canada. Wanted to be an actor from a very, very early age, and my parents really supported me through that. That was the only thing I ever wanted to do. So I was in a lot of drama. I was in a lot of theater in school, went right into university and film school, and I've been a professional for about 20 years. It's literally the only thing I've ever wanted to do.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing. I have a wife who is a medical professional, so she keeps me very grounded. 2 children who are just amazing human beings, and frustrating because they're teenagers, and just great people. So my life is full of a lot of joy. So I have to be thankful for that every day. And things I love. Oh man, I love dogs.
Yes, that's awesome. I love dogs too.
Yeah.
Do you have any? What's your dog status?
We did. We had 2 Labradors. They were sisters, a black and a chocolate. Got them when they were, I'm not sure, 10 weeks old, back in 2005. We said goodbye to one of them in 2017 and said goodbye to the other, our chocolate, in 2019. So long, full lives with them, and I miss them every day still. But wow, they just make life so wonderful.
They do.
Yeah.
It's very enriching.
Yeah.
We talked about, actually, on a previous episode of The Dragon Prince on the podcast, we were talking about our love for pets and how how we choose loving pets even though they can hurt us, when they go and when they leave, and It's just, we voluntarily choose to give and care give for these pets that just drain us of our resources.
It's very, very true, and they give so much back that they don't know they do.
That's true.
But it's so, I don't want to jump the gun here, but my definition of You know what? I'll talk about this later.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll give you the opportunity.
Yeah.
It'll work.
Yeah, it will.
So I'm going to ask you one more question before we move on. But what's a question that you wish more people asked you? I'm sure you've been in so many interviews and Comic-Cons and things like that. But like, what's a question you wish people would ask you more often?
When is season 4 coming out?
You've never heard that before? I'm so impressed.
Can you imagine if I'd never been asked that question?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I've never been asked about, never really directly asked about my connection. If we're talking about the show, I've never been asked about the connection to the character. I've said it lots. I've talked about how, I went in and I didn't want to judge the character. There's a lot to judge. But you've got to approach the character without judging, because then you don't have a full development of that character, full understanding. Mm-hmm. I haven't asked, what are the correlations and how do Viren and I, how are we similar? But where does the character come from in me? I know that sounds like a weird thing to want to be asked, but I love talking about that stuff because people love to hate Viren. He's a bad guy. It's easy to hate him. Yeah, he's a bad guy. But I started off talking about, he's a human being, guys, and he's not black and white. He's gray, and there's but as the seasons went on, he just got worse. It got worse and worse. So I've got to find some way to still keep that connection and still keep him truthful when even I didn't know what was coming. Mm-hmm. I would get a script and go, oh boy, okay, how do I do this? So
it's pretty phenomenal to think of. One of the things I love about this series, Avatar, there are several other ones as well, but even the villains are just, and I say that as Viren being the villain here, sure. But I think that even the villains are so grounded in something that people can buy into. It's a very human thing that they're striving for, and I think that's so true with Viren, and I admire that you try to connect that, because I imagine that is what makes you do such a phenomenal job in the recording booth.
Well, I appreciate that. I think what's most important for me is that people always, that we as the viewers give the characters a chance, or that we see the depths of them. We don't have to do exegetical studies on a character to figure out. We just want to be able to go a little deeper with them so we can understand where this character is coming from. It does not justify their actions or their words. It does not make those things okay. And at the end of that, we can look into it and go, no, it's just those are bad intentions and there's no integrity there, or the moral compass is spinning around madly. But if we give them a bit of a look, we might see something on the human level. There's got to be something there.
Yeah. I think it's pretty fascinating because we have two themes kind of running on this podcast that we venture back to pretty regularly. One is making the most generous assumption of people. Like, what is the hypothesis of generosity, right? Nice. What is the most compelling reason why they would do this? And then two, we can hold people accountable and be empathetic at the same time. We can empathize and have compassion for the reasons behind why characters do things. Sure. And still make choices to hold them accountable. Which is really hard for people, apparently. And I'm like, I say apparently, it's hard for me even, but it's challenging.
Judgment and ignorance, and I speak for myself completely and only here, are so easy that's such an easy go-to. I'm just going to judge what I see. I'm going to be ignorant to what might be going on underneath, even though in our own lives we can we can fight against that. Like, please see me for what I really am, not for what I just said or did.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean that. I'm actually got something deeper going on, but I can so quickly throw that aside and just start judging and being ignorant. And it's no different for these characters that are written so well.
Yes.
A person's not going to watch and go, oh, you know what? Jason was right. Viren really is such a lovable guy, and he's really got great. No, you don't have to do that, but it's nice to. I think a person will enjoy a show even more when we're able to, plumb those depths even a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I love about this episode. This episode is chock full of witnessing just this verbal sparring and how do I get through and get around these situations between all the characters. And I just, there's a lot of beauty, if you will, in all of that. And I'm excited. And I say that somewhat with extra emphasis because that's our lens today. And we both had this opportunity to watch this episode through a lens of beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And so we now have this beautiful opportunity to talk about beauty in a way that helps our listeners. Like, what is beauty? And when we watch this episode, what were we kind of looking for? So if you don't mind, I'm going to share a quick little story about me regarding beauty. And then I'd love to hear a little anecdote about your lens of beauty.
Please do.
So for me, like, we kind of grew up hearing this adage that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I like that concept, and it tells me that what I might see as beautiful doesn't necessarily transfer to someone else as beautiful. And I think that's really important because when I was younger, I heard that, but I didn't really hear it. And the reason I say that is because I had all the friends in elementary school, and then when it got to middle school and high school, that went like pew, and it was a sharp decline. And the reason is, and I get this, there's a lot of reasons, but I'm attributing one reason, if you will, to the fact that I never saw beauty the same way that my peers did. So when I was in conversations with my buddies, and they would be like, "Oh man, she's really beautiful," I'd be like, I don't see it. And I wouldn't say that. I'd be like, yeah, totally. But I didn't quite see it. And so I was like, what's going on? And so I actually started researching like hormone levels and like, do I have an appropriate amount of testosterone? And like, how do I measure that? And I was like calibrating what I should see as beautiful compared to what like I literally didn't see as beautiful. And like, even with my female friends, when they would say, man, he's really beautiful, she's really beautiful, and no matter what, I would be like, I don't see it. It's not that I didn't find people beautiful, it's that the quote standard of beauty was not something that I ever kind of bought into. And what that manifested was me feeling really alone and me feeling really out of place and questioning my sexuality. And there was a lot of things that that I was grappling with because of beauty standards that were culturally placed upon me. And so I'm really interested in exploring that, but also kind of exploring like my inner gremlins around this grapple that I'm having with this beauty concept. And so that's something that I'm interested in paying attention to as I look through this episode. And I don't know that I took notes specifically on those, but I think that's an interesting thing to think about as I think about beauty. But What about you? Tell me what's going on in your head when you think of beauty. What are you thinking about?
Well, when you asked me to think about this, only one thing comes to mind, and it's been the one thing that's only ever come to mind when I've thought of beauty. And sort of piggybacking on what you had said, talking about as a teenager, seeing girls and they're beautiful, they're pretty, they're attractive, and hormones rage. But when I was in grade 10, many years ago, I was at a party at a house. I was in the backyard, and I looked. I had a vantage point. I could see down the side of the house to the front yard, and this girl gets out of a car, and it was this instant. It's like the clouds parted in this one spot and this ray of sunshine. Yeah. And that was my now wife. But I saw her face and I saw her full form, and that was it. She really was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. And it sounds dramatic, and it sounds
awesome,
love struck. But there really was a deep connecting. Like this is beauty. I couldn't even really see her fully because she was far away. But when she came into the backyard, I mean, I was lost in her face. Eyebrows, the curve of her eyebrows, the slope of her nose, her lips, her skin, her incredible eyes, everything. I wouldn't say I was instantly in love. But I thought to myself,
maybe.
I told my friend, I'm going to marry that girl. And, but that was beauty. That was like it. She was created for me to see her as the most beautiful thing in the world. So that's where I connected the most with beauty.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. No pun intended, but I guess semi-intended. But no, that's and it's interesting to think about. Like, that seems like it was not only something that was a pivotal moment in your life, but that was almost like a paradigm shift in terms of you experiencing your life, right? And it's amazing how much power beauty can have in our day-to-day lives. Well,
it did change my life immediately and forever because from that moment on, I pursued her. And, we got married 9 years later, but it took an awful lot of work to get this guy to get her to fall in love with this. So there were other powers at work there, that is for sure, because I don't know how I managed to swing that.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting, too, because I think about how beauty in the eye of the beholder implies change in a way, in that what I see as beautiful now is not necessarily what I will see as beautiful later, because who I am now is different than who I will be 5 minutes from now, much less a year from now. And so it's interesting to think about how our perception of beauty can change just as we change. And so there's a lot hanging there, and I'm excited to explore that with you as we get into the episode. But before we dive in, we have a responsibility to make sure that everyone knows what happened in the episode. And so you or I get to have the pleasure of going first for a 30-second recap. But remember, whoever goes first has the pleasure of saying, well, I went first. You get to make everything up. So it's up to you. Do you want to go first or second? We have 30 seconds to capture everything that happened in the episode.
I would love to hear where you go with this.
All right.
I think mine will be a little skewed and a little biased, so I'd love to hear yours first.
Oh, that's probably fair. Okay, I'm gonna put 30 seconds on the clock.
Yep.
And I'm gonna go in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so Viren kills a bunch of butterflies to look pretty, and then Callum plays with a new cube, and then Ez is like, oh my god, let's eat bread for clubs, and then their clubs as meals, and then Rayla's like, no, we should take off this bracelet, but then she gets really scared because she hears Callum scream, and Callum zaps Rayla by accident, and then they take a boat, and then Rayla doesn't like water, but Amaya and Grin show up, and then Viren and they have a row, the trio fall down into a waterfall, and the Q&A session, oh my god, I'm running out of time, and then, Amaya visits Sarai's grave, and Viren manipulates her, and then Amaya, and then, oh my god, and then Rayla goes back, and then they all fight, and then the fish monster, and okay, I'm done.
Wow.
30 seconds is not a long time.
Not a long time.
I'm just saying. All right. I did my best.
Yeah.
I missed a few things, and that gives you ample opportunity to make up for those things. We'll see what happens, though. You have 30 seconds on the clock. Are you ready?
I am ready.
On your mark. Get set. Go.
Okay, so Viren gets up. He needs a little pick-me-up, so he goes and eats a butterfly. He feels much better. Some garbage stuff, stupid stuff happens with some kids in the water. Who cares about them? Back to Viren. He wants to go sit on the throne because, Harrow is gone and the Katalis needs a king. And Amaya says, no. And Viren says, you know what? Fine. If you told me, I'll do this. We go back to some stupid kids doing stupid stuff. Who knows what's going on over there? Who cares? back to Viren. They have a little bit of fight, but then they make up, and everything's better. And wow, yeah, 30 seconds goes by.
It's hard, right? Oh man, yeah. Part of me wanted to let you just keep going because I was really enjoying that recap.
A little Viren heavy, but that's all right.
I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Considering who we're talking to.
Right.
Okay, so this brings us to our this is the bulk of the episode, right? This is what we're talking about. We're talking about beauty and what we noticed in this episode in relation to beauty. So, tell me, like you watched this, I've watched it. What's a moment of beauty that you noticed in this episode that you want to discuss?
Yes, good question. There's a couple different things. First of all, it has to do with I've been a big proponent of the process of making the show. So the writing, the voice acting, of course, and the animation. So aside from in the story itself, I know a lot of people had issues with season 1, the way it looked. People thought it was choppy. All that stuff aside, just some certain characters are they have such a beauty to them. Now, Maya and Gren have been my favorite characters from day one. So, besides Viren, of course.
Yeah.
But stand aside from that, just the design. Amaya is this beautiful, stunning character. And she just power, elegance, grace, just determination and beauty just exude from her. So there's that. And watching it through this lens, I just saw that even more. Going up to the close-ups and go ahead.
Amaya's gorgeous.
Yeah.
In the sense that like her character is also very beautiful. Mm-hmm. I'm not just talking about the way that she looks, but just everything about her is beautiful. Just her. I think last episode I was grateful for Amaya, or she won the MVP award, or I was grateful for her. But either way, total boss in the sense that like just the way that she cares for the boys, the way that she is so confident and is able to stand up to Viren and call him out on his bull droppings, and the way that she's able to just be herself authentically is just a really beautiful experience for me and for watchers, I expect.
That was sort of where that beauty was coming from for me, that authenticity when they're at that statue and they're lighting candles. And Amaya and Viren have this heart-to-heart. It really is this, there's a deep connection. I say that as the actor who did all my work, to get to that point. People say, oh, Viren's lying. I don't believe so. And I certainly didn't approach it that way. There's a true connection there between Viren and Sarai, his memories, and this connection he has with Amaya. And then she just 180s and says, no, I don't trust you. Mm-hmm. I thought, wow, that is so genuine. They have a really touching moment, but her truth comes out and she's not afraid to say it. Viren is definitely holding some truth back. But she's just genuine. And that's that is a beautiful thing.
Well, and one of the things that I find really beautiful as well, and that authenticity that we're talking about, if I can, I want to connect it to Callum and Ezrin. I find them to be really beautiful for the same reason. And you see this moment where Callum, this random 3 group of kids are doing random things, right? Mm-hmm. But Callum's playing with his cube. And it's, he's pulling it back and forth and it's lighting up, and he's just you can see how excited Callum gets from watching this happen, and seeing someone have fun and really just be vulnerable and authentic is incredibly beautiful, and it makes me smile, and I know that it makes other people smile. And I think Ezrin is the same way when he's like gnawing on the bread and it's like not going anywhere and it's just happening, and it's just, again, seeing someone being themselves without any reservations, I think it's so beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things that I like. It makes me tear up thinking about it, actually, because it's just so powerful.
We didn't there's a lovely moment in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go into detail, of course, but where I got to have that moment with Viren, and it's one of my favorite moments of the entire show and the entire recording
Mm-hmm.
experience, where Viren got to be himself because no one was watching.
Yeah.
And it was just exposed. It was raw, naked, and that it was there's a real beauty to that. A real I was teary-eyed working on it because it was I was just so emotionally connected to it.
Yeah.
But we just don't get a whole lot of those because Viren does at times have a face on.
He does, and I think it's this. The weight of the world is on his shoulders, seemingly, right?
He
Where
puts it
he's
there,
trying to
yeah.
solve the world's problems, and
Yeah.
he's trying to do it all on his own because no one else is quite bought into the same mindset that he is, and it's just. I think one of the reasons it's so beautiful for me, as I kind of just reflect on these moments, is what it does is when people are vulnerable, when people are authentic, when people are being themselves. What it's doing is it's giving other people permission to do the same thing. And so when I watch this episode, when I watch these characters do these things and be themselves, what I get a sense of is like, man, I want that. I want to do that too. And so I'm like, I'm going to go do it. And then, we start telling ourselves stories, but that permission is just something that I think is really powerful.
Yeah, I think in an alternate universe, if Viren had just said to Amaya, "Let's do what you want to do. We'll work this together. We'll find the kids and we'll put the rightful person in the throne." Man, what a different story we'd have, of course.
Yeah.
But something has happened in their past, and of course we get a glimpse of certain things through the seasons. But Viren and Amaya have got to have more to their relationship that we just don't know about.
There is clearly something that we're not aware of yet.
And I would love to know that stuff, but I mean we just never will. Maybe we will. Maybe we will. Maybe I already know and I'm not telling. I don't know. To see that connection, because there's a strong connection. Even though there's some negativity and what some would say no love lost, but I don't necessarily agree with that. But
yeah, I find that my experience with Viren is okay. So Viren's retort to Amaya when she's pushing him is, "I am a servant." Mm-hmm. And that moment is just so poignant. Like, I get chills thinking about it because of just this really, you can sense the amount of pain. And I would imagine like shame around that line because that's what he heard from Harrow. And it's just that, like, talk about beauty in the fact that how sad it is. Like, that's one of those moments.
Yes, I don't disagree with you. I do agree with that. I also approached it, well, it just read this way to me. It was a powerful moment, and Viren seized that to maybe as a form of manipulation with Amaya to reuse that in that moment with her that he had with Harrow. So in the moment with Harrow, I 100% believed it was a genuine moment. There's love and there's hurt, but with Amaya, he was using it as a grandiose gesture. She would never know because she wasn't in the room with him and Harrow. But yes, it is a reflection of that pain that he did feel, and it's still there. Clearly, it's still there.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fascinating. I thought that was, and I love hearing this perspective of how you came through it and worked through it, because that's something we wouldn't get otherwise.
Sure.
So really neat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, what's another moment for you? Or I'm happy to share one of mine. What's another moment?
Yeah, go ahead. I'd love to hear yours.
Okay, so I'm going to venture back to this moment at the beginning, talking about somewhat of this beauty of youth, if you will. So, Viren has this, closet of butterflies. Mm-hmm. And they look to me to be like Zadian butterflies, or at least, not normal. Or maybe they're just, in a well-lit cabinet. But hello, my rays of sunshine, he calls them. And then he kills this butterfly as I imagine what is a form of dark magic in order to maintain his visage of beauty. And so it's interesting to me that beauty as a fuel source, it's certainly the life of these butterflies that are doing it, right, for the dark magic, but also something so beautiful. Like I don't know if you've ever watched or heard of Full Metal Alchemist, but this idea of equivalent exchange comes up around, I have to sacrifice this in order to get this. And it just seems like this beauty exchange. But tell me about your thoughts on this moment. What comes up for you?
Well, I love that, it's not an analogy, but the idea of exchanging, taking something so beautiful and doing something so horrible with it in order to find some normalcy is just so, it grosses me out. It's just so yucky. It's
meant to make you feel awkward.
Yes.
Like, ugh, I don't love that.
So if I separate myself from the whole idea of the character and whatnot, just looking at it as is, it's very off-putting, of course, because it's so beautifully drawn, it's so beautifully animated, and
it is, yeah,
it's lovely. And then we see that moment where it's pale and gray and dead on the floor, and it once was so, beautiful. But
you know what I find funny? So, like, do you think he leaves them on the ground every time? Because do they have a maid, and is there a maid that's just questioning, like, why are all these butterflies here? Like,
I thought that too. Are people just going to walk over that? Is he just going to step on it and just gets grounded? Yeah. They must have maids of some sort in a castle.
Yeah, they keep quiet, apparently.
Does it turn to dust? But that's actually a legitimate question I had in the past. Do these things does he suck the complete, I mean, is everything gone from this thing? Yeah. It's just a shell. It just disappears. I have a tarantula, and when you feed it a cricket or a mealworm, it goes to town on that thing, and it turns into this little tiny husk of nothingness, and you can squish it, and it just dissipates into dust.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is this what happens when Viren pulls the life force or whatever it is out of those things? Again, we'll never know. It's just an interesting idea to think about.
It is. Oh, yeah.
And then this is very interesting to me because I've had so many people say to me, Viren's white pallor with the veins, and that is his real image.
Interesting.
And he takes the life from these creatures to put on a front that he used to have, but now it's simply a mask. I've never looked at it that way. I've always looked at it as these things rejuvenate him and to bring him back to normal.
Yeah.
And I've had people argue with me at cons, like, no, he is now this white, horrifying creature, and he uses their power to give him some makeup, and that only lasts so long. So it's fascinating how people own this stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. So one being, this is an illusion. Two being, no, it is literally rejuvenating my body and returning me to, ground zero.
I love the idea, though, of the false front, the false sense of beauty, because Viren's a handsome fellow. His physical features are striking, and he's got a beauty to him, but is that all fake? Because it's all been destroyed by his dark magic? Yeah, that is fascinating to me.
Well, that brings up an interesting question regarding beauty, right? It's, if you have the analogy of, makeup, if you will, like covering up scars or covering up freckles. A lot of people don't like freckles.
Right.
I find Grin's freckles to be incredibly endearing. I find him gorgeous, but it's just one of those things where like people will cover up what they perceive to be blemishes because of these, again, societal and cultural pressures and standards of beauty, right? Because this is what the money says is beautiful versus what someone else might say is beautiful. So someone might look at Viren and see the white streaks and the gaunt look and say that's more beautiful than what you're putting on, right?
Right.
So it's just interesting to think about why we make decisions around beauty. But like if you look at psychology, and like there are benefits to being what are the like standard beauty, right? To having standard beauty, because you get statistically paid more, you get statistically more likely to get all the perks and benefits of random things. And so that's, I didn't have the article to reference immediately in my hand, but lots and lots of statistics showing that beauty does pay off.
There's a bit of a danger, though, going back a little bit to
please.
Viren looking that way and saying, well, there is a beauty to that. Sure, it is a stunning look, but he's paid dearly for that.
Yes.
That's a lot of abuse and misuse of dark magic and whatever else it's taken its toll on him. And because of that, he has, there's been violence towards other creatures to cover that. So that beauty has cost a great deal. And so in that, it's not, I don't want to say it's wrong, but there's.
Well, does it cease to be beautiful, right? And so, like, it depends on the beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, for it's really interesting to think about. Like, I pose this to our listeners and to you, but like, what is the cost of beauty, right? If we have to work for it, what are we sacrificing in order to do that? And for some people, it's 3 hours of time in the morning preparing and making sure that we are spick and span to present ourselves to the world. And for others, it's not that. And so I wonder, what is the cost we're losing when we choose beauty over authenticity?
Well,
right?
for some folks, it's thousands of dollars to modify their faces or their bodies. Mm-hmm. And no judgment, that's just hard facts.
It
don't
is.
See people, themselves in that lens until something is corrected, and they take whatever measures they have to make that happen. So if someone finds happiness in that, great. But what was the cost?
Well, and to think about it from this perspective with Viren, it's one of those things where I find it really fascinating to I imagine one of the stories Viren could be telling himself, and it is that every time he does dark magic, I am sacrificing a part of me, right? I continue to make these decisions. The burden falls on me to do this. I am a servant.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? And I think that story can perpetuate and create this narrative that allows you to say, well, no one else is willing to sacrifice what I am in order to make this country great.
That's right.
Right? And to me, that's one of the most humanizing things about Viren, in terms of like, yes, I'm willing to sacrifice the way that I look, the way that I am, who I am, my life core, whatever really is being sacrificed when we do dark magic, right? Mm-hmm. But I imagine that plays a big role in the personal narrative he has.
It certainly played a big part in how I approached him. Because that goes back to what I was talking about at the very beginning about, taking a closer look at someone. And I think part of that is the actor. Part of it is me saying, hey, guys, I put a lot of work into this, so take a look at all the layers before you judge him. Go ahead and judge
Absolutely.
him, but take a look at what I've done here. And that just doesn't happen, and that's fine. But yes, I 100% agree with you. It's a bit of it's tunnel vision. Mm-hmm. Where he says, only I can do this. There's a genuine, real humanness behind that. But there's some serious ignorance and disassociation with the rest of the world and people trying to help him, logic in a lot of these places. And when it comes down to it, sometimes morality. So, because he makes some, it's good. That's a good observation, Ben.
Oh, well, thank you. Stop it. So, I have two more. Do you do you want me to go next, or do you have one that you want to talk about?
Please go ahead.
So I want to go back to Amaya
Mm-hmm.
at Sarai's grave, and I really want to talk about just the beauty of sign language here.
Oh yeah.
And just to me, sign language feels like a way more vulnerable way of communicating, because the way, like, this is like drawn, like I'm blown away that, like, I'm thinking about it like this way when it's drawn this way, but she signs with such emotion, and there's so much going on there. Like, it just really strikes me how beautiful it is to like, in a way, act out what you are also trying to communicate.
Yeah.
Like putting it's almost communication through dance, through motion, is really powerful. What were your thoughts on that? I don't know if you picked up, or that was something you noticed or not.
This was one of my points. So I'm glad you said it, because I had the great pleasure of getting to know the animators, and specifically some of the people who worked on these particular shots, and the amount of work and research they put into getting that just right. But not just that. There's almost nothing in this show that gets me as excited as the idea of the sign language and the interpreter and a third-party speaker. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it, the way the work they put into it. If you watch someone who is deaf and speaks sign, and they have an interpreter, or they don't, but they're conversing with someone who does not sign, that idea of people turning our heads when we're talking, they've got to read our lips, just that back and forth of Gren signing for her and her watching his hands, and then she looks at Viren's lips, and sometimes Gren stops because he is so in tune to what she's observing. Yeah. He knows that her eyes are quickly looking at Viren's lips. Viren turns his head. Her eyes go immediately back to Gren, who gets it, starts signing. That is so incredibly unique, not unique, genuine.
Yes.
If you watch people in real life do that, I can barely hear what people are saying to me sometimes, let alone watching lips, and
right.
That language is so just that genuineness between those three people, two signing, one listening to watching lips.
Yeah.
It's so incredible the way they put that together.
Yeah.
From what I've read and heard from the deaf community or deaf people, it's legit. It works, and it looks, they find it that it's good. That's a terrible way to say that.
Yeah.
It's right. It's right. It's correct.
Yeah. No, I love that. I just, the whole moment there of watching that, and I love they didn't put subtitles up there for, like, I love it, because it forces people to go and do the research, and it forces people to pay attention, and to, like, I like that. I think so fewer people, I said that poorly, but a lot less people would care if the subtitles were there.
Yeah.
And I think that forcing people to make that extra step really has done a great deal of help to at least awareness.
Yeah, because you go on Reddit and you've got people who say, I'm deaf, and this is what they said, and it was exactly correct. And then that spreads. So that's very cool.
It's awesome. And then the other thing just in that moment is the beauty of the trust between Amaya and Gren. Mm-hmm. Like, they're just, like, that's mind blowing. It's fascinating to me how in sync they are, and how much trust they would have had to have built up over I don't know how long. But, like, it's really, I thought that was also worth noting in terms of for beauty for me.
It's a strong, stable relationship. We don't see any cracks in that. I'm sure they're human beings, so of course there would be.
Yeah.
At some point, somebody's grumpy in the morning, probably Amaya. Gren.
I don't think I've ever seen Gren be.
No, he would have to be at some point, because he's a human being. But yeah, you don't see that. We don't see that even in their private, although I don't know if we see them privately by themselves at all. Maybe we do. But that is such a strong, stable relationship.
Yeah.
They're my favorites in that show.
No, I keep on coming back to how much I appreciate them, so I totally get it. Okay. You have another before I move on to my last point?
That was my other.
Okay.
The idea.
All right, well, then I have one more for us. Let's see what happens. So, moving on to this moment with Viren, where you had mentioned this was a true moment of genuine communication and back and forth between Amaya and Viren. And to me, it was a masterful manipulation of Amaya here. I'm gonna be real with you.
Yes.
It seemed like a true masterclass on, and it may not have been his intention at first, but to me, it felt like his intention was, this is the most generous assumption, right? The most generous assumption I can make is that he wanted to get close to Amaya, right? And he wanted to use that. And I think that what made it so masterclass, so masterful, was that it was real and it was genuine. But I also think underneath it was his end goal. That's my interpretation, right? And so my point around beauty here is this through line of him maintaining control. He gets Amaya back to the breach. He pledges his own children. He puts them on the line, even though he knows that he's said he sent them to kill the princes. Even with that, she still suspects. But so she assigns Grin, right? And Grin's going to be in charge. And I think this moment where just watching that plan go through was, what a beautiful, and I say that in the beautiful but terrible kind of a way of how articulate that was.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm ready for the response now.
Yes, I did start off by saying that's a genuine, honest exchange, but I'd be completely lying or kidding myself to say that there was not an ulterior motive, or there was an end game or a part of the plan. Of course there was. And you said it very, very eloquently. Yes.
Thank you. I tried to be tactful.
I mean, he's, I never want to give away too much of my own thought, because I'm in the position where I get to take the writer's words and I get to create that in the moment. Yeah. And so I have my ideas, and I can talk to the writers and say, what's going on here? And often they said, what do you want? What do you want to be going on? We have our own results we want to get to, but how we get to them, what are your thoughts? So I have my own. So those are mine to not share necessarily, because I've already done that in the work. And then it's up to the listener or watcher to go, oh, I think he's doing this. So your observation is wonderful and pretty spot on with how I approached it. I mean, I had to it couldn't just be mustache twirling, fingers. Oh, my plan is coming together. There had to be some sort of connection, because they've truly had one somewhere and still do. But like we said earlier, she knows. She knows Viren. So she knows something is up. So her plan is, I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to put Gren in charge because I have to go back. So your plan's not going to... Little does she know, perhaps, that was part of his plan. And if it isn't, he can easily counter by, throwing Gren in the dungeon. So, I think you're right on the money there.
Yeah, and we didn't even... that's... Ugh. And just when she says to Grin, I trust you, you have been my voice, now I need you to be my will and save the boys. Oh, God. It's just so real. And I just find it... This whole episode, each episode of this series is just 20 minutes chock full of layer upon layer. It's talk about a beautiful series, if you will.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's issues here and there, and nothing's perfect, of course, but there's so much. There's a lot of good stuff in these. I say that just generically, of course.
So much.
But,
okay, so we're going to take a short break, and we're going to let you have a nice little musical interlude, and we will be back shortly with our Lens MVP and some gratitude, and we'll see what else. We'll see what happens. All right, see you in a minute. All right, everyone, welcome back to this wonderful final couple of segments that we have for you. Jason's still with us, and I'm excited because Jason has some experience with some of the things that we've done in our other side of the podcast. And so, as y'all may or may not remember, I'm currently in divinity school and going through a bunch of conversations around spirituality. And one of the things that we practice on the other main episodes of our podcast is we do spiritual practices every now and then with the episodes we watch. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of incorporate one into this episode, and it's called Lectio Divina, which translates to divine reading. And what we're doing is we're choosing a sentence, and we're going to kind of analyze that sentence on 4 different levels, and we're kind of walk us through those together. So, Jason, thank you for joining me in this exercise.
Sure.
The sentence that we're going to kind of take apart and look at is this sentence that we talked about with Amaya. And so this is what she says: "Now I need you to be my will and save the boys." So I'm going to read that one more time. "Now I need you to be my will and save the boys." So this first level is the easiest one. It's what is literally happening in this scene. What is the literal meaning of this sentence? And I'm going to let you kind of take a stab at it. And if we need help, we can work on it together. What do you think?
Well, she cannot be there to do this job that she wants to do. She's so connected with, because they're her nephews, and they're her heart. She has a very deep connection with, emotionally and physically, with the boys, but she can't be there. She has responsibilities that are greater, meaning they deal with the entire kingdom.
Yeah.
And because she has such a strong, Gren is not her right-hand man. He's her right hand. He is part of her. So she trusts him implicitly, and she is tasking him with the job to save her family.
Yeah. And that's it. That's as easy as it is. So level 1 is just kind of getting us situated in what's literally happening with this. And so we're going to escalate this, climb up this ladder, if you will. Each of these 4 steps is climbing up a ladder to like this divine, if you will. And so that's the goal, right? So step 2 is, what is the allegorical meaning? So in terms of the series, in the content that's in the series, what does this sentence remind us of in the rest of the series?
Oh.
And so I'm going to read it one more time. "Now I need you to be my will and save the boys." And I have one that comes up pretty quickly for me. and since we're in a conversation with near Viren, right? It's the opposite, if you will, of Viren's like talking to Soren and Claudia. I need you to be my will and kill the boys while I do that. And so that really kind of juxtaposes that in a way, which I find fascinating. What about you? Does anything else? What other allegorical moments does this sentence lift up for you?
Wow, I don't know if any other is as powerful as that. I didn't think of that. It's the darkness to the light, or vice versa.
Yeah, it's almost like a yin and yang kind of a deal.
It's amazing how a cartoon can we can dive so deeply into it, and it can affect us so.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah. And I've had lots of these moments throughout, but I've never seen that juxtaposition before. So Amaya,
neither had I. But that's
Amaya
the cool
and Gran and Viren and his kids. Save those kids because it means everything to me. Kill them if you have to because it means everything for the kingdom. And
it's a really neat moment.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it one more time. So, now I need you to be my will and save the boys. Are there any other moments of where someone has to be someone's will, or we have to save the boys or save anyone? I think of just Rayla like being like the constant hero.
That's what I was thinking too.
Right?
Even that brief moment of jumping in to save bait.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing what's right. Leaving her own thought process, her own feelings behind, and going, well, I've got to do this.
It's also interesting because it reminds me of kind of Harrow sending in his letter to Amaya, saying, I need you to be the one who takes care of the boys at the Banther Lodge,
yeah, that was
right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
There's just a lot of like, I need you to do this for me to save them because I can't, right? There's just a lot of like transition of power that happens, it feels like, that I'm noticing.
Yeah, and what a responsibility. Although, but is it though? I mean, was it taxing for Harrow to write that to her because he's the king and he should be able to take care of them? Or was it taxing for her to receive that, or is it just another thing? Oh well, I'm their aunt, I can take care of them. Or
in a way, I wonder. For me, like when I talked about this on a previous episode, but being able to rely on someone is a form of letting them closer to you. It's a form of intimacy.
Yeah.
And I feel like being relied on is something that I cherish. Like I want people to lean on me, and I want people to use my shoulder to cry on, right?
Yes. And here we come to Viren.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying to Harrow so many times, trust me, I can do this. It's going to take dark magic, but I can do this. Yeah. Just trust me. And Harrow saying, I have trusted you in the past. And then we come to this loggerheads where, stuff, it just doesn't go like it used to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it right there. Those two guys spending their lives trusting each other and
like brothers.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like we've tackled step 2. So that was the allegorical meaning. And so we're climbing this metaphorical ladder. We've done the literal meaning, step 2, the allegorical meaning. Step 3 is the meaning. How does this translate to our own lives? And so as I read this sentence, what does this remind you of in your life based off of our conversation so far and based off of what you hear? So here's the quote. Now I need you to be my will and save the boys.
Well, as a father of 2 teenagers, I've gone through the years of discipline and teaching, and they're still teaching. There always will be, and they start to teach me, and there will still be discipline. It just changes. But there's also this very strong, we're now in this stage where we talk a lot about responsibility and integrity and making these choices because I can't be there to make them for you. You need to maintain your integrity. You need to make responsible, respectful choices. And sometimes that goes against the status quo. But that's what I want you to do, and that's what I want from you. And you know through our conversations that is what is right. That's what makes you a better person. So I have those conversations with my kids, and it is, when you go out there, do what I would do.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. No, it really is. To think about the concept of my will for you is to live into the values that I have been instilling into you for so long, right? And so for you to live into that will save you is partly a like, wow, the hubris, but also wow, like this is truly what I believe in and truly what I think will help you live your best life. So not like,
Yeah, to be clear, it's not, and I don't think you misunderstood me, but to be clear, it's not me saying do what I do because what I do is right. It's I make mistakes all the time, and I'm every day apologizing to my children for something, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful for,
and that's beautiful,
the gift of conviction.
To apologize to our children, right?
But for me to say go out and do right, because I strive to do that every day, and I fail, and as long as my children see me doing that, striving to be honest and have integrity and be responsible and respectful, that's all I can ask for. They will go and they will make their own choices. They will make their own mistakes. And I want them to embrace that. And I have to embrace that. I want to keep them close to me for the rest of their lives. Yeah. But we can't do that. So I want them to experience life, but try and be as good a person you can. And that sounds so generic. Yeah. But it really does mean a whole lot when you look at the layers of that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So I worked with teenagers for a little over 10 years, and I find it really fascinating to think about this conversation. Like, now I need you to be my will and save the boys. Like, in this concept of delegation comes up in every organization, and like we need to be able to delegate. We need to be able to delegate well, because if I can do it, then that's great, but it's preventing me from doing other things. But if I can help you do it, that's going to open me up to do other things, and it's going to teach you to do that better.
That's right.
And so at what point do we release that responsibility and start saying, I'm handing this to you now because this is for you to grow and learn with now. And I think that ultimately is what helps all of us grow and learn. And it's an element of leadership that I think is imperative, is being able to let go of things and say, I trust you. And that's isn't that what Amaya says? Yes, she says, I trust you. Mm-hmm. You have been my voice. Now I need you to be my will and save the boys. And so like it's almost like this element of trust is necessary in order to delegate and to offer. And so I think about with you and with your kids and with me working with teens, it's that relationship building over time is so imperative for us to then delegate and to say, hey, you've built up this trust now. I'm giving you to the world to start making your own mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But what just really quickly on Amaya and Gran, and for anyone who is deaf and signs and has a translator, it's that is just implicit 100% trust that they are saying what you have asked them to say. Yeah. Wow, it's so powerful. Because one wrong word, or it's totally different. It's the telephone game all of a sudden.
Exactly.
So, well, that's a great responsibility.
Oh man. Okay. All right. So that was step 3, level 3. We're climbing this ladder. Theoretically, we have reached the 4th step. And so the concept here is there's 2 ways you can take it. What is your takeaway? What's the learning that you're walking away with from this conversation? Like, what's an action step you're going to take because of this conversation? Another way you could take it is if you were going to teach someone else a lesson, and it might be, another way to phrase that is, if you were to deliver a sermon on this sentence, what would your sermon be about? And so it's either that or just an action that you want to walk away with. And so I'm going to leave, you can take it that either direction. And so what are your thoughts? I'll read it one more time. Now I need you to be my will and save the boys.
Wow, that is deep. That's something I have to think about for a moment.
That's okay. Yeah.
I guess it still comes back to me. I still have a connection with my own life and my children, but before children, my own father and my life as a child and growing up. That I was also given those responsibilities by my dad, and my dad, like any human, had failures and failed in front of my eyes, and I saw that those things that I was supposed to do or supposed to be didn't change. I just noticed, or I grew up going, oh, my dad isn't perfect. He does make those mistakes, but the lessons he tried to teach me, however different it may have been from the way I teach my own children, were still the same. And so I needed to go out into the world and try and live that way and fulfill those that he, not demanded, but insisted you need to live this way to be a good person in society.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's anywhere near what you were saying, what you're asking for. If you have I'd love to hear what you have to say on this. So
I think that one of the beauties of doing an exercise like this is that it's open for interpretation. It's not something that's hard and fast.
Sure.
And so I think that's the fact that you're walking away with that revelation, I think, is really powerful. And I think that's really, really impressive to be able to take a sentence from the Dragon Prince and get to that. And so I think that's really beautiful. For me, I think what I'm realizing by having this conversation is that I want more people that I have a relationship with like this, that I can say, I need you to be my will. And I want that I could rely on enough to say, I need you to raise my children. Like, who is the godparent of my would-be children? Right. And like, you know what I mean? Like, so how am I think my walking away action step or something to think about is, how am I going to cultivate closer, more intimate relationships with the people that I'm close with?
Yeah, that's excellent.
And so that's the question I think I'm walking away with. So again, just to kind of recap for our listeners, this was the exercise called Lectio Divina, which is a spiritual reading or a divine reading. And this is historically practiced with like Christian texts and has been gone back way back when. And there's a lot of books on this. And so if you're curious, I recommend checking it out. But it can be done with anything. Obviously, we've just done it with the Dragon Prince. And if you like that conversation, there's a lot of other spiritual practices that we've incorporated in our show that kind of help us learn more about these shows that we're watching and help us watch it more intentionally. And that brings us to the Lens MVP. So, you know what this means, but let me remind it for our listeners who might be tuning in just to hear you talk, right? The Lens MVP is the award we are nominating that is the person who has exemplified the lens the best. And that can be in a multiple of ways. It could be this person is the most beautiful, and I think they're the most beautiful. My perception of this character is that they're the most beautiful. Or this person has the most beautiful personality. Or this person makes the most beautiful thing. Literally, it's up to you for how you nominate, but you just need to give us a short description. So, Jason, who is your nomination for the MVP of beauty for this episode?
Yeah, my MVP nomination would be Amaya.
Good choice.
Thank you. As I'd stated earlier, I find her to be a stunning, physically a stunning beauty. She's a drawing.
Yeah.
But they've captured so much beauty in that drawing, and then her outlook on life, her attitude, her stance, her beliefs. Those all come through very crystal clear. She keeps things guarded, because that's part of her job. She has to compartmentalize and organize, and given the job that she has. But at the same time, she shows great love for her nephews, for her sister, her brother-in-law, and she is not afraid to speak truth into any situation. So she has a moment with Viren where they discuss old times. They have a laugh, and I think it's genuine. It's a nice moment.
Yeah.
Remembering Sarai and how strong she was. But she makes no qualms, and she has no problem putting Viren in his place and telling him the cold hard facts of what she believes. And not only that, she flexes on him really hard. Right? He's like, I will task my own children to, and she says, nope, that's going to be Gren. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she's gone.
Yeah.
So
truly fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. And I admire that so much in the writing. And I just love that strong character. Yeah. She's my MVP.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty strong nomination. I'm just saying, like, it might be hard. I'm gonna nominate someone, and I'm gonna try and compete. But I guess our listeners are gonna have to decide which one they're picking, or they're gonna submit their own. We'll see. Remember, you can submit a Lens MVP if you want to record a voice memo and send it in. We will put it on an episode.
Great. That's cool.
Yeah, so send it in to thearkofe@gmail.com, and we will play it for you. But for now, it's my turn. So I'm going to suggest someone. We're going to see. We all are going to let us know which one you prefer. So my nomination is Grin. And here's why. There's a lot of moments, and the moment when Amaya says, no, Grin is going to be in charge. And then he's like, beaming with pride. No, it's me. That's me. I'm gonna, and like just just the lift of his expression and his change from being Amaya's voice to being himself is. I got chills thinking about it. Like, it's just really beautiful. And y'all, I'm also a sucker for freckles. I think he is visibly attractive, just as you see Amaya is attractive. It's really amazing to think about how these characters are so, and I think part of that is just his personality. He's so positive and joyful, and I find that to be like submitting beauty to the world and offering it just with arms wide open. I just find Gren to be really full of beauty, and so that's my Lens MVP nomination. You've heard Jason's for Amaya, so let us know, keep us posted, and we will keep you posted if anyone submits anything. We'll let you know.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, please.
Not to speak against my potential votes, but this might sway people. Adrian Petru, who voices Gren, is he's one of the funniest guys I know. He's so sarcastic. He's so witty. If you follow him on Twitter or Instagram, you would see that. But to be in the studio with him when he's working, he is Commander Gren.
I love it.
Watching him deliver that line, he's got the biggest smile. He's like, "Oh, that's me. I'm Commander Gren," and going, "Yes, you are him." It was so wonderful. He's perfect casting, and he represents both those characters.
Yeah, he does.
Just the voice of the one, but that voice does so much, and he represents both those characters. So I'm just a shout out to Adrian, because that positivity and that you love in Gren, that was animated around his,
and he did a phenomenal job.
He's wonderful.
That also reminds me, he's also the narrator for the audiobook. For Moon.
Yep.
Just for people, FYI. I don't know if people are aware that exists. It's super neat. I'm in the middle of reading it, and I love it so far. So
yeah, his Viren is
really cool.
Okay. Yeah, but he's a great narrator.
I can hear echoes of your voice when he's talking.
Good.
It's interesting. I'm like, he tried to say it like you did. I was like,
yeah.
His grin's spot on though. Anyway.
Yeah, he's worked on it.
Okay, so this is our final segment, y'all. I know it's like we're running out of time, and it's sad, but we're also want to be respectful of people's time. So gratitude is the moment where we are just, who in this episode are we grateful for whatever reason, whether they made us feel a certain way, whether they taught us something, but it doesn't have to pertain to the lens at all, but if it does, that's cool. It's up to you. So Jason, who are you grateful for, and tell us why?
Well, I'm on a streak here, so I have to go with Amaya again.
I love it.
Being there from day one with the script, getting to read through that. A lot of times it's garbage, 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 my line, garbage, 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 my line. And then sometimes you don't process everything right away and you do your work. That's not the case here. Being able to read and perform that scene between those two scenes between Amaya and Viren, and then see it again and watch it a dozen times, but then look at it through this lens that we're looking through, and also this gratitude. She's so honest and forthright, and she does not suffer fools. And Viren, she's having none of what he's giving her.
She's not picking up what he's laying down.
I appreciate that writing, the fact that they can just sort of lay bare. They can envelop it in this moment of, I remember Sarai and let's light candles, and it's a touching moment. But she says, let's not kid ourselves for 1 second here. You're a snake. I don't trust you at all. We may have shared good times, but I know you, and there is something going on. So beware, because I'm onto you. And that is a serious thing, because she's the person you do not want onto you. Because she can take care of business. And I, upon watching it again for, like I said, the 12th time, I just had a renewed sense of appreciation for her.
Yeah.
Because it kind of breaks down walls that Viren is building up. And
I like that.
We see through some of these cracks thanks to her.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wow. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Okay. So we didn't spend much time on the drag gang, but I want to talk about Rayla for my gratitude. For me, being scared of something is hard already. And then being forced down a waterfall when you're scared of water. And then there's this moment where she gets on land and she is just like kissing the ground, and she is so grateful to be back on land. She looks back, and then she realizes she has to get back in the water in order to save Bait and save the boys and just make sure everything's okay. And like she hesitates. Like she's like, I don't want to do this. But what I'm grateful for is that she does.
Yeah.
And she makes that move to jump back in and to tackle this giant fish monster in a body of water that she's already scared of. And I think that courage to be able to face something that we're scared of is really admirable.
Sure.
And I'm really grateful for her modeling that for us.
She does it economically as well. She doesn't just dive into the water. She climbs the tree. She jumps off the branch onto a log, avoiding as much
it for
water
as long as
she
possible.
can. Yeah. So I'm with you on that.
Oh man. Okay.
What does she say? What does she say to save a frog that doesn't even like her?
Yeah.
I know she says something like that.
Something like that. I didn't write it down.
That's just genuine heart.
Yeah, it is. And it really models just how much she's grown to care for the boys and for Bait already. And I think a lot of that has to do with how Callum was like building this beautiful conversation. I can't believe we didn't talk about this, but this beautiful conversation between Callum and Rayla where he's asking her questions and trying to make her feel more comfortable. It's just, there's so much. And we could talk forever, but
That's a big one. Yeah.
Okay. So, y'all, this brings us to a close, but before we go, Jason, I don't know if you want to share. Not everybody does, but if people want to contact you in any way, if people want to find you, if people want to follow you, how do you want them to find you and follow you?
Sure, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. My personal mobile number is On Instagram, I am at Simpstagrams, and I'm very clever, thank you. And
Yep, I love it.
on Twitter, it is at a boy Simpson. At a boy Simpson.
Oh,
So,
I get it. I like
yeah.
it. Okay, so you can follow Jason there, and remember, you can follow us at BNB_pod, and we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all the things, and we also have a Patreon if you want to support us and help us continue to make episodes like this. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
We also have bonus content. We have a lot of cool things that happen on our Patreon, a Facebook group where you can talk about the episodes and suggest lenses for future episodes, etc. So thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon. Thank you to the Archive for hosting the podcast. I want to thank Alex Mayfield, my co-host. I want to thank Noah Blanchard, our executive producer, Kira Martin, our social media coordinator, and Max Gongaware, our producer. And thank you everyone for listening. And until next time, be well and do good.
Peace.